A correlation analysis on the preference of movies from Walt Disney Animation Studios and Disney Pixar based on the insights of grade 11 HUMS and ABM students. Introduction. Many films from Walt Disney and Disney Pixar have been critically acclaimed. According to Halls in 2006, even after Disney bought Pixar in the same year, they're still always compared with each other. This paper was made to determine whether people have a preference between the two studios. Review of related literature. According to Disney Pixar, their studio was incorporated in 1986 in California when it was acquired by Apple co-founder Steve Jobs. Its works include The Incredibles and Toy Story. On the other hand, Disney started its humble roots in 1923 when the Disney Brothers produced a series of short live-action/animated films. According to Walt's 1995, they only released the first full-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in 1937. Despite controversies about the acquisition of Pixar by Disney, according to Ruiz 2013, the merge of the studios has brought nothing but good to the genre. Materials and methods. A survey was administered to 49 randomly selected grade 11 senior high school students from the LSU Manila. The names of the population, all students who are under ABM and HUM strands, were listed and numbered alphabetically. Using a random number generator, 50 numbers with assigned names were generated. The respondents were given 2 weeks to answer the surveys. Some obstacles were encountered, like one respondent having a leave of absence and would not be able to answer the survey. This led to the reduction of students to 49. Then the responses were encoded and analyzed. The hypothesis test on two population proportions was the main statistical treatment used in this study to determine whether Walt Disney or Disney Pixar had the edge over the other. Other statistical treatments such as estimations of one population mean and proportion, hypothesis tests on one population mean and proportion, and hypothesis tests on two population means were used to answer other problems. For faster analysis, a program PROSTAT was used.
Now, on to the results of the descriptive questions in the survey. For the first general question, all 49 students of the total sample size answered that they have watched both Disney and Disney Pixar films. This guarantees that all respondents have background knowledge on the topic. For the last time they've watched other films, the average for Disney films were 3 months and 4 months for Disney Pixar films. The results from this question can be backed up with the results from how the respondents watch these movies, usually by going to the cinema for both studios. By watching these movies, the respondents spend an average of 531 pesos and 454 pesos per annum for Disney and Disney Pixar respectively. Majority of the respondents enjoy watching both Disney and Disney Pixar films, with only a very small percentage not or not really enjoying them. This can be further evidenced by the results of which among the recent movies in the past 4 years from both studios did the respondents enjoy, with the results being an average of 3 for both studios. As for the respondents' ratings on the aspects of these movies, results showed relatively high ratings, with barely any ratings of 1 or 2 for both studios. As for the likelihood that the respondents will watch an upcoming Disney or Disney Pixar film, majority answered most likely for both studios. And this is most likely due to the appeal of the story or plot, which was the number one factor that makes or made the respondents want to watch movies from both studios. With all the previous questions answered, the overall movie preference of the respondents turned out to be Disney movies, although the results yielded a 1-point difference in its frequency.
Now we'll move on to the inferential portion of our results. We used PHStat in order to provide a statistical analysis of the data we gathered, and applied a 95% confidence level in order to provide a margin of error. We will focus on the estimation of points, first being the estimation of one population mean. This one is about the last time the respondents watched from either studio. For Disney, it is between 1.74 and 3.55 months since the respondents last watched a movie from the studio. On the other hand, it is between 2.17 and 5.18 months since they last watched a movie from here. If we are to look at the difference between the two means, we can see that the decimal is negative, or it is a lower decimal, meaning that there is little to no difference between the two data sets we gathered. Next, how much respondents spent. This is also using estimation of one population mean. For Disney, it is between 355 pesos and 11 centavos and 706 pesos and 53 centavos. For Pixar, it is between 301 pesos and 0.9 centavos and 607 pesos and 0.7 centavos. Again, the difference does have a negative, meaning that it is possible that there is no difference between the two at all, while the upper limit reaches 306 pesos. The decimal will be disregarded for now since it is a monetary value. Next, we move on to the respondents' enjoyment. Here, an estimation of one population proportion was used in order to get a percentage instead of a whole number. First, we look at Disney, which garnered a 90.38% to 101.46% in terms of enjoyment. As for Pixar, it is between 84.17% and 99.50%. When we compare the two, we can see that the difference is negative and an extremely low decimal, meaning that there is hardly any difference between the two at all. Lastly, we look at the respondent's preference. For Disney, it can be said that the preference is between 37.02% and 65.02%. As for Pixar, it is between 34.98% and 62.98%. This is usually how the respondents have a preference to the studio at all. When we compare the difference again, we can see that again it is an extremely low decimal or a negative number.
Now we move on to the second half of the inferential portion of our results, which is hypothesis testing, where we first analyzed two questions that gave quantitative data. Now, using hypothesis testing, it was proven that 3 or more months have passed since grade 11 Humes and ABM students watched a Disney film, while less than 4 months passed since they last watched Pixar. Overall, the number of months that passed since they last watched Disney is not greater than when they last watched Pixar. Furthermore, the students spend 530 pesos or less on Disney films and 450 pesos or less on Pixar films. This proves that the amount they spend on Disney films is greater than the amount they spend on Pixar films. We also used hypothesis testing for two significant questions that gave qualitative data, one of which somewhat verified the enjoyment a student feels when watching Disney or Pixar films. According to our analysis, at least 95% of our chosen population enjoy Disney films, while at most 93% enjoy Pixar films, proving that these students enjoy Disney films just as much or even more so than Pixar films. Lastly, we proved that 52% or less of grade 11 Humes and ABM students prefer Disney over Pixar, and in turn, at least 50% prefer Pixar films over Disney films. Now, this proves that they prefer Disney films just as much or even more so than Pixar films. This concludes our results portion of our study.
Since the research is under statistical study, important information regarding each of the animation studios was obtained before letting the respondents make their choice to make sure that movies from both studios have been watched by the respondents. The descriptive portion of the research yielded a majority of the respondents having enjoyed watching movies from both Walt Disney and Pixar animated studios, with 95.92% and 91.84% of the respondents answering yes respectively. The slight penchant toward Walt Disney is further indicated when it garnered 51.2% of the vote. As for inferential analyses, an estimated proportion of 90.38% and 101.46% enjoy Walt Disney, while an estimated 84.17 to 99.50% enjoy Disney Pixar. The estimated difference is between negative 5.38% and 13.54%, suggesting that movies from both studios are well received. The analysis indicates that students had equal preferences between the two studios, as the difference of the proportions for each studio is negative 21.84% and 17.75%. Through hypothesis testing on one population proportion, it was confirmed that 95% of the students enjoy watching Walt Disney movies, while 93% enjoy watching Pixar. In addition, almost 52% prefer Walt Disney over Pixar, while only 50% choosing the latter over the former. Through hypothesis testing on two population proportions, it is further proven that students enjoy Walt Disney films just as much or even more than they enjoy Pixar films. However, the preference towards Pixar films less than Walt Disney Animation Studios is false. In conclusion, majority of the students enjoy watching films from Walt Disney more than Pixar by a very small margin, while their preference between the two studios is balanced due to the lack of evidence that one studio is preferred greatly over the other. This study has successfully proven that there is relatively equal preferences between Walt Disney Animation Studios and Disney Pixar.